In chapter 1, verses 23 to 26, we noticed that Jesus exorcises a demon. Very clearly, it is not simply one demon, but it is the whole demonic kingdom. How do we say that the whole demonic kingdom is represented? Because even though there is one demon only in the person, unlike chapter 5, 1 to 20, where the person is possessed by a legion of demons, there's only one, and yet the demons speak in the plural. The pronoun used is the plural. What have we to do with you, or what have you to do with us? Because the whole demonic kingdom now is going to be destroyed. The stronger man has come, and he will bind the strong man. This is basically the point. And the response to this miracle of the people is that they are amazed. Amazement here is used in the positive sense, because amazement does not really lead to anything. Just because a person is amazed will not lead the person to faith, will not lead the person to believe. But the amazement here is a positive sense of amazement, that they are taken up with it, that they are impressed with it, which of course for Jesus means nothing, but still the amazement here is positive. And this positive amazement is seen in their response, in the question which they question themselves with. What is this, they ask? A new teaching. So the words of Jesus have resulted in the action being performed. The be silent, phimoteti, this word, be muzzled, has resulted in them interpreting his exorcism as a new teaching. With authority, he can command even the unclean spirits. So this authority now, the clarity about what Mark meant when he says in Mark 1:22-23, he taught with authority. So his authority is seen in action. So the fact that the person who was possessed by an unclean spirit is now released from that captivity, released from that hold, is an indication that his authority can be seen, can be witnessed. And his fame spread through the countryside. So his authority very clearly was an authority which was qualitatively new, and it extended even to demonic forces. Immediately following this miracle of the exorcism, Jesus leaves the synagogue. Here, left the synagogue is not to be interpreted in any negative sense, though sometimes when Jesus leaves the temple, later on we will see even this phrase, he left the temple, has to be interpreted in the negative sense of leaving the temple definitively. Here, left the synagogue is only information which Mark is giving us, so that he changes the locale, changes the place of action now from the synagogue to Simon and Andrew, James and John, the house. So he entered the house of Simon and Andrew, possibly Simon and Andrew living side by side, along with James and John, who up to now are the first four who are called. Simon's mother-in-law is in bed with a fever, and he comes. Now notice here, in this narration or in this miracle story, Mark narrates it like a typical miracle story, and this story has the three regular features of a miracle story. That is, the case is narrated. And if you look at the earlier slide, you will notice the case is narrated. What is the case? Now, Simon's mother-in-law lay sick with a fever. And immediately, again, notice the word. On top, you notice, and immediately he left the synagogue. And immediately, Mark wants to hasten everything. You can see the use of immediately twice in these verses is an indication that immediately means nothing actually except to show Mark's hurrying and rushing Jesus through the first 3 chapters, as we notice. And immediately they told him of her. So in other words, the case is narrated and it is a request for a healing. Now, even though sometimes there is a request for a healing, here notice, they told him of her sickness. In John chapter 2, verses 1 to 12, we read the first sign at Cana in Galilee, John 2, verses 1 to 12. There it's a wedding, and the mother of Jesus had been invited. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited. John never refers to Mary by name in his gospel. He always refers to her as the mother of Jesus or his mother. Jesus talks to his mother or addresses his mother twice in the gospel, once at the miracle at Cana and once when he's on the cross. And both the times he refers to her as Gunai. Gunai is not a bad term, is not a derogatory term, but nor is it an endearing term. It is a sort of distancing term. But there, the mother of Jesus realizes that the party had run out of wine. And it would be a tremendous embarrassment for the bridegroom. Whatever her reason, whether she was related to the bridal party or the bridegroom, whether she was friends with them, whether they were neighbors, whether they were close, all of those details are not given to us by John. John only tells us this, that the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. Now notice, no request is made. Like here, notice here, they told him of her. Not that they asked that Jesus heal her, not that they made a request that he heal. So sometimes the pointing out is an indication that you want the person to do something. So in John 2, 1 to 12, the mother of Jesus points the situation out to him. She simply says, they have no wine. She does not say, will you provide the wine? She does not say, will you help them? She does not say, will you come to their aid? She says nothing of that. She only points to the situation. Now, this, I think, is sometimes what we need to do in our prayer. Often, I think in our prayer, like Martha, Luke 10, 38 to 42. Luke 10, 38 to 42 is a very beautiful text where, like Martha, we presume to tell the Lord what to do. Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me alone? Tell her to help me. So you're telling the Lord in your prayer what to do. So therefore, Mary, our mother of Jesus, is a fantastic lesson in many, many things. And here in the miracle at Cana, she's a lesson in prayer, simply pointing out her situation to the Lord. Now, in this COVID-19 times, we can take a lesson both from here, Mark 1, 29 to 31, and John 2, 1 to 12, when we in our prayer simply tell the Lord about our situation. So here, they told him of her in John 2, 1 to 12. The mother of Jesus tells him of the situation. They have no wine. So our prayer possibly ought to be, we are struck with this novel coronavirus. We are frightened of COVID-19. That's all maybe. That's all maybe. So here, the case is narrated in a miracle story, the three steps, the case, the cure, the confirmation. Notice the second part. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted up. No word is spoken. No word is spoken. Only here an action is performed. So Mark possibly wants to show that there is no dichotomy. There is no separation between the word of Jesus, which can exorcise a person possessed by an unclean spirit, and the action of Jesus simply taking her by the hand and lifting her up. There is no distinction. There is no dichotomy. There is no separation. There is a harmony. Jesus' word is as effective as his action, is as effective as his word. So the second is the cure. In all the miracles we notice, except the two which I mentioned in the introduction, Mark 7, 31 to 37, Mark 8, 22 to 26, where external methods are used, and for a reason. In all the other cases, it's either by a word or here by an action, taking her by the hand and lifting her up. So the cure is effected very easily, and then there's a confirmation. Not only does the fever leave her, but notice the fever left her and she served them. So basically, it is the confirmation that she got up and served. Some see in the lifting up of the mother-in-law of Simon, some see resurrection terminology, but I think it's too early in the text for us to even think in terms of the resurrection. It is simply narrated as a miracle story, basically as a healing, and also as a lesson that healing is not merely for one's own benefit, but healing is also for service. Even though Matthew narrates this miracle, we notice in Matthew, after Simon's mother-in-law gets up from her fever, she serves not them. Matthew changes the pronoun to the second person singular. She served him. Because in Matthew, no one can serve except Jesus is to be served. You don't serve others, you serve the Lord. And so what is important is for us to reflect during this time of this tremendous, tremendous pandemic, of how blessed we are. Many of you might still be privileged to live either in a religious house, or to live in a seminary, or to live in a place where you are taken care of. But there are so many. And even among the members of your family who are living in such tremendously trying situations. For us as priests, living in seminaries, living in religious houses, it is so easy and so comfortable. If I have to self-isolate, I live in a huge place where there are private rooms, where there are separate rooms. So self-isolation is not a problem. But what are my family members going to do if one in the family falls ill? If I have a brother or a sister or a relative or a cousin who has his or her families, and living, even let us assume, living in a decent one-bedroom flat, whom will they give the bedroom to if two people in the family have to self-isolate. So we, because we are seminarians, because we are religious, because we have opted for this way of life, are privileged. There are lakhs. Lakhs means hundreds of thousands, because lakhs is a term used only in India and not everyone follows what lakhs is. Lakhs is 100,000. So there are hundreds of thousands of young men and women who do not have a job, who because of COVID and lack of business have been terminated. And in our city of Mumbai, where I am, there are hundreds and thousands who travel for 4 hours a day now during these times. Earlier it was 1 hour, but now it's 4 hours a day to reach their place of work. 4 hours a day to go back to their homes and work for 10 hours. 4 to go, 4 to come, 8 hours. 10 hours of work, 18 hours, 6 hours for everything else. For sleeping, for bath, for meals, for family time, for entertainment. That's what they have. And so I need you very, very strongly to reflect. Those of you who for some reason have not been able to come back to the seminary and are living in your homes, I would say 99% of you will realize that your life in the seminary was a luxury. It was a luxury that you had your own room, that you had your own internet connection, that it was so quick, your internet connection. No thing of going off, no waiting, for example, no keeping on running like a round thing. No, it's just so quick. And now, likely you are in your village where you grew up. You are living with your parents now because you cannot come to the seminary and things are so challenging. And what I say is, Simon's mother-in-law in this context showed that she was healed by getting up and serving. And I want to ask you, with all of this privilege that you have, with all of these fantastic luxuries that you are given, what are you doing? When I say good health here, I do not mean only good health. Now, so many of you are young, and when you're young, it's easier to have good health, not so difficult to be in good health. But good health here is a metaphor for all the benefits you have just because you are a priest or going to be a priest, just because you are a religious, a man or a woman religious. And so we need to reflect on this. In chapter 1, verses 32 to 34, will give you an idea of how we must respond. Because of the privilege that we have, we must respond like Jesus. And what does this text say? The text says that evening at sundown. You see, Mark likes to give 2 indications of basically what the time is. That evening and also at sundown. That means later in the evening. Notice all who were sick and possessed. We saw the first miracle is of the exorcism of somebody who was possessed. In the second miracle, we saw the healing of a person who was sick. So here they are mentioned together. sick and possessed. Now notice, this is Mark's exaggeration. Mark's exaggeration, namely the whole city. How is it possible for the whole city to gather around the door? But notice Mark's immediate and immediately, to indicate this quickness, to indicate the popularity. Look at Jesus. He's reaching out to everyone. So by mentioning the whole city, what Mark is saying, don't take me literally, but imagine the popularity of Jesus. People are flocking to him. And notice, he healed many. The word many here should not mean that he did not heal others, but rather he healed everyone who came to him. And for the first time in the Gospel of Mark, we come across the command to silence. Notice, and Mark gives us a small hint. Look at the end of this verse when we are told he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. When we link up this miracle, or rather this statement, with the exorcism and what the demons said there, we make a connection. There, the demons said that they knew who he was. And who did they know who he was? How did they identify him? As the Holy One of God. Now notice, here, Jesus does not allow them to speak because they knew him. In other words, he does not want to be known as the Holy One of God through the mouth of demons. That's what we can say. And we make the connection between the first exorcism, 1:23 to 26, and between what he says here. So very, very clearly, Mark is telling us that Jesus, as far as Jesus is concerned, he does not want to be known through the mouth of demons. So all those who were sick and possessed, the kingdom is the absence of any kind of possession. The kingdom, because it is the absence of any kind of possession, is the kingdom of God. So if anyone is possessed by a demon, it means this kingdom of Satan is still very much alive. Jesus has come to wipe out the kingdom of Satan. He has come to do away with the kingdom of Satan. This is basically what the kingdom of Satan and the kingdom of God are, opposite to each other. So when he makes sure that somebody is not possessed, that there is an absence of possession by the unclean spirit, then the kingdom of God is here. As far as Matthew is concerned, Matthew ends this text with a fulfillment quotation from Isaiah, that he has taken our diseases and has cured our infirmities. Luke retains the command to silence of Mark. So up to now, when Jesus silences the demons in 1:23 to 25 or 27, there it is part of the exorcism rite. But in 1:34, for the first time, we are told that Jesus would not allow the demons to speak. This is the narrator, Mark, telling us that he would not allow the demons to speak because they knew him. And how did they identify him? What does it mean that they knew him? They knew him as the Holy One of God. Then why would he not allow them to speak? Because that is what he is. He is the Holy One of God. Yes, he is, but he does not want to be known as the Holy One of God from the mouth of the demons. That's why he would not command them to speak. He would command them not to speak. This busyness of Jesus, and as I said, our response to the luxuries that we have can be like that of Jesus, namely that we give of ourselves completely, that we do not live selfish lives, that we live lives that are selfless, that are giving to others, where others take precedence over us, that we reach out, that we use our time profitably, that we do not waste time. So notice, if you plan out your day and you tell yourself in your examination, you must take up very, very clearly how you have used every moment, because in these days, every single moment is precious. People are longing to work, but nobody's giving them a job. People want to put in their best effort, but nobody is willing to employ them. And so, you, in the situation in which you find yourself, this privileged situation in which you are, must respond to God by using profitably. I do not mean that you do not rest when you have to rest. I do not mean that you do not have time for exercise and for other kind of leisure. I mean that you avoid, especially at these challenging times, wasting your day. If you are examined at the end of the day, can point out to you that you have used the day profitably and that you have used the day thinking of others, I think it's a wonderful, wonderful use of a day. Along with this, Jesus gives us another lesson, that he is busy, that he's physically fatigued, that he's working hard, that he's healing. The whole city is gathered. He's very, very popular. And yet, he finds time to commune with his Father. Mark shows Jesus praying only 3 times, and in 2 of the 3 times, he does not give us the content of the prayer, but we can find out the content of the prayer from the context. If this prayer of Jesus is within the context of his busyness, we could say that Jesus is praying here. He goes to an eremon. In an earlier lecture, I mentioned to you that the word eremos can be wilderness sometimes, uninhabited sometimes, remote sometimes, desert sometimes, solitary place, aloneness. And I would like to think, even though Mark does not explicitly state it, when others who were less fatigued than Jesus, less busy than Jesus, would have required their full rest, Jesus takes his rest, but his rest is a rest with the Father also. So there is a need for physical rest, for closing the eyes and shutting the mind off, yes, which he does. But there is also, and he sees this communing with the Father as another kind of rest. So praying in the context of Jesus is done in Mark alone. And from his response to what Peter, the Simon and those who come tell him, we are clear that it is a prayer which has got content within it. So very clearly, Simon and his companions are concerned, notice, about themselves. The whole city has gathered means Jesus has become popular. And likely it means that because Jesus is popular, some of that popularity is spilling onto Simon and his companions. So when that is the case, then they would want to sustain that, because for them, that is important. that I get a pat on the back, that people start applauding for me, that they clap for me, that they tell me I'm doing such a fantastic job. So some of that popularity rubs off on the disciples, not because they have done anything, but simply because they are Jesus' disciples. So obviously, they would want to sustain it. They want it to continue. And so his companions, notice the word, katadioko. Searching is not the proper term. Simon and his companions hunted him down. Hunted him down is an indication of how strongly they wanted him. Their popularity depends on him. So like you hunt down a wild animal, and this verb katadioko is used only here in the New Testament and is used of hunting down a wild animal. So it is as if Jesus has run away, he has escaped, and they're going to hunt him down. Because of the response of Jesus, we can retroject, we can go back, and even though John does not give us the content of the prayer, we can possibly say what the content of the prayer might have been. From his response, Jesus says, no, we cannot remain here. We cannot remain here. The kingdom is not for a few people. The kingdom is not because people are patting us on the back. The kingdom is not approval and applauding. The kingdom is not parochial. The kingdom is not in a particular place, but the kingdom is universal. It is all encompassing, and that is why we have to go to other towns also. Because Matthew and Luke do not show the disciples in as bad a light as Mark does, in Matthew and Luke, or rather if the text is absent in Matthew, Luke will have Jesus go to a lonely place, because Luke is the gospel of prayer. He shows Jesus praying more times than any other evangelist. But it is not Simon, but people who want to keep Jesus from leaving. And before we can come to the miracle where Jesus heals a leper, Mark 1:39 gives us a summary statement of the activities of Jesus. And the activities of Jesus are basically a double activity, namely preaching, which is word, verbal proclamation, and casting out demons, which is action. Notice here, it is not simply that casting out demons must be understood specifically in the sense of casting out demons. It must be understood in the sense of all the activities of Jesus are to destroy the kingdom of Satan and to build the kingdom of God. Now, while this is done on the one hand by exorcisms, it is also done on the other hand by healing from sickness, by healing from paralysis, by healing from a withered arm, by healing from the flow of blood, and even by raising from the dead. So this phrase, casting out demons, must not be interpreted narrowly, but broadly to include all the actions of Jesus. And the word preaching before that indicates that it is both word and action, saying and doing. The kingdom includes both.